Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about a film by the brothers Philippou, their sophomore effort, Bring Her Back. I'm Dan. I'm finally back after something of a long hiatus. My brother Jesse has been holding it down, releasing content solo, and I'm very happy to be back so that we can do a video together. This is going to be a spoiler review. We're not going to belabor, beating around the bush about what's going on in this film. We find it far more interesting to take a deeper dive. But two fundamental questions stick out for us. Number one of the framing devices that the brothers Philippou use for this film is either a single or a series of strange videotapes that show terrifying ritualistic behaviors. The other question we want to raise concerns one of the characters, this foster boy Oliver, who resides in the home of Laura when Andy and Piper come into her home. He is mute, functionally mute. He doesn't talk. He acts very strangely. And so the question of what's going on with him is central to the film. It's also like the videotapes, one of the linchpins. Having said that, this film is about a stepbrother and sister, Andy, played by Billy Barrett. He's great in this film. And then Piper, played by Sora Wong. Sora Wong's a complete newcomer, hasn't done any other work as far as I know, but just as memorable and just as terrific in her role as any of the other performers, which is saying something for someone her age. Piper is visually impaired. She's functionally blind. They lose their father very early on to a kind of mysterious shower accident, and they're placed in foster care under the care of this mysterious and initially warm-seeming woman named Laura, played by Sally Hawkins. Even if you're not a fan of horror movies, you should go see this film for the performances. You should especially go see this film for Sally Hawkins. And she's one of the emotional centers of the film, which is saying something because she actually is the antagonist of the film. Once they're in foster care, strange things start happening almost immediately. Laura already has another charge under her care, this mysterious boy Oliver. Jonah Wren Phillips plays Oliver. He behaves very strangely. He seems to be in a kind of catatonic state. He doesn't talk, pretty much totally dependent on Laura for his care. He's not only housebound, he's roombound, which becomes one of the early seeds of suspicion for Andy. I like Sally Hawkins so much, and I think she makes us feel for this character so much. She's in the grip of something much larger than herself, and this is the whole idea of trauma. Like, trauma has touched her as well. One of the things that comes out very early is that she's lost her daughter, Kathy, who was also visually impaired. However, I do want to go back to the very first reveal of one of the videotapes, which happens at the beginning of the film before we're introduced to the context or any other characters. We're seeing a bird's eye view, this girl in this circle, and then a naked older man comes up behind her. And already we're really like, what is going on here? This is truly unsettling already. I have no idea what I'm looking at. And then we cut to the grainy VHS footage where we witness this girl apparently being hung. Um, and there's water and it's grainy. It's not really altogether clear what's happening. So we really don't get a whole lot. We just see this really unsettling kind of snuff film footage. And again, sort of like the brothers Philippou make very smart use of illusion here, because I'm thinking about the snuff video and Videodrome. I'm thinking about the kind of snuff video aesthetic of a film like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But of course, the primary thing here is the videotape, which we can recognize aesthetically as a videotape because of the grainy, granulated quality of the image. One could say that the videos are literally the frame of the film because we're introduced to them before we're introduced to the world of the film proper. If you're a viewer who's used to these kinds of films, likes these kinds of films, then you figure out pretty early on that Laura is looking to replace her deceased daughter with Piper. Piper's going to be the new daughter, the new Kathy. What we don't know is how that's going to work, whether or not it's this psychological mania. This is just a mad character. Sally, I should say Laura has lost her mind, or if there's an occult element. And of course, as more and more is revealed, we're leaning heavily towards the occult idea. And that's confirmed at the end when we finally get the definitive VHS footage where we have captions that tell us the different aspects of the ritual. So you have to place this entity, whatever it is, into a host. You have to mimic the death of the loved one. The body of the loved one is devoured by this strange host spirit. And then the spirit of the deceased loved one is literally vomited into the new body of the mimicked of the vessel that you use to mimic the death of the loved one. And so we get that on captions on the video, which were, of course, missing or blurred out in earlier renditions of the footage. It is a great reveal for me because it does reveal the significance of what we've been watching in those videos.
What these videos seem to depict is a way to transfer a spirit into another body. And so the implication in the movie is that she's been using Oliver as a host body to house some kind of entity or spirit, perhaps the spirit of her daughter, Kathy, to be transferred to another body. In this case, it would be Piper's body. That's really the element the video cassette tapes brought to me was this occult level and using that kind of occult supernatural horror to manifest the psychological trauma being played out.
Yeah, going back to what you said about the apparently magical elements, I think one of the reasons this film works so well is that the elements really do have a kind of strong pagan aura to them. The one exception to that is that in the climax, Lara refers to the entity inhabiting Oliver, who eventually turns out to be a boy called Connor. She refers to that entity as an angel. But there I get the sense that whatever this entity is, it can't be understood within a kind of human ideological kind of framing. There are things we understand about it based on the videotapes and based on the ritual, but whatever it is, it's not an angel, which raises the question, can it be understood then as a demon, et cetera, et cetera? But the thing about pagan elements is that spirits were simply a force of nature, like anything else. So believers back in the day would point to the wind, they would point to water, they would point to natural occurrences and say, these are the spirits or these are the gods. Um, and we get this strong sense that that's what's going on here. One of the things I think was most fascinated by is that the pool that um, that Laura's daughter drowned in is drained when we first come to the house. And there's some kind of mysterious timetable that I never really am able to pin down with this ritual. Laura has to wait a certain amount of time for something to happen, for a certain amount of time to pass before she can actually complete the ritual. And I noticed that one of the things we see is that Andy is paying a lot of attention to weather on his phone, like heavy rain, heavy rain, heavy rain. And Laura seems to be paying attention to that as well. So one of the questions in my mind is she waiting for to be enough rain for the pool to actually fill back up? In which case, is it really an important part of the ritual that it has to be natural water? It has to be rainwater. So
Yeah.
it has to actually be water that comes from creation, so to speak. It has to come from the natural environment. She can't just fill the pool back up. Um, and so it has to be drained, and that's part of the ritual. The brothers never spell that out for us. So much about the ritual and about the central supernatural element is mysterious and remains mysterious. The mystery is really maintained throughout the film, even as different parts are revealed.
Yeah. The other thing about the cult here as well is, and I'm not the first person to make this comparison. I think other reviewers have drawn a parallel between Bring Her Back as a modern retelling of the Grimm's fairy tale Hansel and Gretel. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you have like Andy and Piper as the Hansel and Gretel figures, and of course Laura as the witch character. And there's a lot of like parallels between how this movie plays out and how that Grimm's fairy tale plays out. You have like the secluded house setting, very much invoking the secluded gingerbread house from the fairy tale. You also have the witch character presenting herself as kind and sweet at first, and then only gradually do the children uncover her darker nature. And
Mm-hmm.
then also you have that theme of consumption. The gingerbread house is a place where you eat, and so it's the gingerbread house in the fairy tale is standing in for like the mom's body. The witch is like a dark mother figure as well, and the house
Mm-hmm.
kind of stands in for the mom's body as a place of nurture. The darker underside of that nurturing space is expressed through the act of cannibalism. In the videos, of course, they bring in cannibalism. Oliver, he has an oral fixation, and you
Mm-hmm.
made the comment that he's like literally eating the house,
eventually when it descends into body horror, it really is a huge payoff because it's not something that the film does clumsily or quickly. And I think that there are two major unsung heroes here. Well, I don't know how unsung they are, but I'll think of them as less overt elements until the end. And that is Jonah Wren Phillips, who plays Oliver slash Connor, and then the makeup for him, as he becomes more and more otherworldly, as his eyes change, he becomes more and more gnarled, more and more decomposed, I would say.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful makeup job, really haunting. And then, but just a tremendously memorable performance by Jonah Wren Phillips. I would think that as a newcomer, he would be somebody I would want to watch. He is able to do so much with virtually no dialogue.
Yeah.
Um, so,
And we both had the same reaction when we talked about this after the movie that he at first appeared kind of androgynous, and I was trying to
mm,
tell like, is this a boy or a girl? If he's a host for Kathy's spirit, let's say, that might bring out a more androgynous aspect to him because
mm,
Laura is literally using Oliver as a vessel for her daughter, having that kind of deep psychological attachment to Oliver as a vessel for her daughter, and so that would bring out an androgynous aspect to him.
absolutely. And the ending of the film is also great because it gives us this kind of overall tragic flavor, this tragic taint to what we've been watching. The Laura character and her arc becomes, I think, a central focus here. Jesse, what did you think of the ending?
Yeah, tragic is the right word for it. I was like heartbroken to see Andy die. Laura runs him over along with the foster care worker. Yeah, in a
Mhm.
brutal scene. I mean, holy shit. I mean, what a car crash scene. And wow, it again executed so well and so powerfully done. And yeah, tragic for Laura's character. I didn't feel any real sympathy for her, I have to say, just because of how manipulative and abusive she
Mm.
was. It's ambiguous why she relents at the end because she's about to drown Piper until Piper calls out mother. Did Laura stop, drowning her because she thought the spirit transfer was successful and that Kathy was now in Piper's body and it was Kathy calling out to her? Or was it her empathy that drove her?
I read that moment as her relenting,
Uh,
right? So that Piper calls her mother. I don't think that she thinks that the ritual has been successful at that point because she knows what the ritual entails.
yeah.
She's got to kill Piper, and then the entity has to vomit Kathy's spirit into her, or whatever. Whether or not this thing is actually going to work, we see it apparently work in the videotape, but it's ambiguous enough for us to like wonder
Yep.
um, whether or not it's really going to work the way that Laura hopes it will. But I read that as a moment of empathy, and I remember thinking to myself in the video in the theater, would this happen, right? I mean, she has been so single-mindedly fixed on this goal, and nothing has stopped her. I mean, she's murdered her former coworker, she's murdered Andy. She's manipulated Andy into believing he's, a danger to his sister. She hasn't stopped at anything. She's kidnapped this boy and emptied out his identity and made him a vessel for this thing, whatever it is. So she's going to stop here. I mean, it kind of works, I guess, because Piper becomes again a proxy for Kathy there. Um,
I hear you
but
on that.
part of me wonders if it stretches credibility a little bit that this character would actually have second thoughts when she's been so single-minded up to this point. So that's the not a continuity error, but maybe a kind of like a thematically flimsier element of the
Yeah.
storyline, or at least of the character. Like, would she actually have this second thought? There doesn't seem to be any room for second thoughts in this character.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think another aspect of the ending that did really work for me and where it all comes together was with Oliver or Connor's character who survives at the end and gets back his autonomy, his real self back. He crosses the magic circle in an excruciating scene where you see him with his like pot belly, like burning up and crossing that magic circle makes it pretty clear cut that this is an actual supernatural thing happening to him.
Yeah, well, and I remember I was torn in two pieces by the end of the film. On the one hand, I love that Connor gets himself back and appears to survive. I love that Park Piper, is able to pull out the stops and save herself. Um, and then I love that final haunting image of Laura in the pool with her drowned daughter corpse. Haunting image. But the more malevolent, self-interested aspect of my viewership really wants to see the ritual completed and see what this actually looks like when it's done. Is Piper actually going to be Kathy, or is she going to be something else altogether? I was really curious about that. I trust the brothers Philippou. I think one of the things that I'm coming away with the two films into their career, I trust them as filmmakers. I trust their choices, and I'm satisfied with the choices they've made in their first two films.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
in terms of like a rating for this movie, what would you give this one?
Oh, it's 5 stars. It's an all-time classic. I think there are elements of it that transcend genre. I think it's an incredibly rich, emotionally charged film, regardless of whether you place it in the horror genre or not. It is definitely a horror film, though, and I think it's unapologetically a horror film. It's a horror film for people who don't like horror. It's a film for people who do like horror. So I think it just fires on all cylinders, and I would give it 5 out of 5 stars.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I gotta say, I am right there with you. Like part of like the neutral critic in me that wants to maintain objectivity, just wants to
Mm,
like downgrade it for something. But
mm,
I gotta give this 5 stars too,
mm,
because this did exactly what it should do as a horror film. Like in the theater, it gripped me. I was unsettled, like in suspense throughout the entire watch time of this movie.
mm,
Um, Deeply disturbed, deeply unsettled, and also very much invested in the drama and the characters. And so I
mm,
gotta give this 5 stars, just because, it did what it needed to do, and it lingered in my mind for a while after watching it. I kept thinking about it. So
mm. Yeah, I'll go back and see it again. As hard as it was to watch, I will go back and see it again because it's just too good.
yeah, yeah. All right. So, right, that's a wrap. Those are our thoughts and reflections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Happy to be back. This is Dan and Jesse with our After Hours Screen Talk. More content coming your way. Go and see this film, The Brothers Philippou. Those are two creative geniuses to watch for sure in the coming years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I'm looking forward to what they do next here. So, all right, be well, folks. We'll see you in the next video here.